Hello and welcome to Five Questions, our new quickfire video series where we sit down with communications leaders and PR experts to hear their insights on leadership, strategy, and life beyond the office. Our inaugural guest today is Janice Kapner. She's the CEO and founder of Kapner Perspectives Group, where she advises CEOs, boards, and executive teams on communications, crisis management, brand strategy, and organizational leadership. She's formerly the Chief Communications and Corporate Responsibility Officer at T-Mobile. And Janice brings over a decade of experience helping leaders build trust, navigate change, and communicate with impact, something that has been pretty top of the news as of late overall. So welcome, Janice. We're glad to have you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Great. First question, can you give us a brief overview of your background and the path that led you to launch Kapner Perspective Group?
Yeah, I started my career in Silicon Valley. I came out of school into sort of the end of the dot-com bubble, and so did some work with some startups, and they got bigger and bigger, and some startups through an IPO, and then eventually was at a company that was acquired into Microsoft. And that was one of those moments where I sort of assumed I'd stay in the Bay Area and look for alternatives. I came home and I said to my husband, I'm going to have to look for a job. And he looked at me and said, well, why wouldn't you consider going to Microsoft? Seattle is a great area. It's a place I would consider, going for a bit. So we had a 2-year plan to come to Seattle and be at Microsoft. And I stayed at Microsoft for 10 years, was amazing, worked on incubated business unit and then ran communications for the Office P&L, which was fabulous. And then after I hit the 10-year mark there and I was like, okay, this was a 2-year plan. We're still here. Are you really thinking about what you want to do? And you should make sure you kind of look left and right. And the T-Mobile opportunity came up. And they were just starting their real turnaround, sort of what we call the Un-carrier sort of evolution and transformation. And that sort of worked out well. Timing worked out well. I went over there and was there for almost 12 years. And we went through the full turnaround, the merger with Sprint, and moving into one of the big top spots as a real competitor for telecom that I didn't know anything about when I went over there. So that's kind of been the journey. And after 12 years, the new CEO coming on board who's amazing at T-Mobile. But again, I did the stop and think versus sort of blindly staying in the job, which is really easy to do when you're not unhappy. And decided just time to take a break and really think about what is the next thing? How many chapters do I have left professionally? And when I got out of kind of the day-to-day big job, 60 hours a week, go, 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 I found that I really missed advising. I missed, consulting. I have had such a privileged career to get to do some amazing things. And when you watch the news and you watch how CEOs are navigating and you watch how other companies are navigating, particularly a climate like we're in right now, you sort of aspire to, wait, don't do that, let me help you. And so I thought, well, let's just do some consulting and see where it goes. And it's very early yet, so we'll just see where it goes. But it's a really cool way to make yourself available to tap into a lot of experience, good, bad, and unique, and help others. So that's how we got here.
Well, congratulations on your new endeavor, and you definitely have a lot of experience. So, after a decade as working as CCO at T-Mobile, what changes are you seeing in CEO tone and leadership today? And how is that affecting communications leaders, their roles, and what they're doing? How has it changed?
Well, I feel like I say this a lot, but this is yet again a very unique climate that we're in. We've got tariffs, no tariffs. We've got AI. We've got, economic sort of, is it good or is it bad, sort of back and forth, and stock market ups and downs. And so it's not a real consistent high or a really consistent low. And to me, what that does to a CEO is it makes them really have to be, for lack of a better term, not to sound cliche, but sort of think on your feet. You have to really be paying attention. You can be going into an interview on CNBC that you booked 3 weeks ago, and the market or the president or an AI breakthrough or AI news can change the entire narrative in a day, at less than a day, really. And you don't want to look like you're out of touch with that. You see some folks going and they have their talking points and they just stick with them, and you're like, but you're not paying attention to what has happened in the last 36 hours. And so I think agility becomes really, really critical to CEOs today, because the world is changing. It's always changing, but now it's not just 24/7 news, it's instantaneous social media changes. And AI is going to be so amazing for the world, but it comes with perceptions of what it will and won't do, the realities of what it is and isn't doing so far, and what it is expected to do, the fear factor with that, the responsibility with that. I
Mhm.
mean, on any given day, you just see these massive, whether it's a market swing or just a massive news cycle that may or may not even be really grounded yet in what we do and don't know. And that's no one's fault. This is all real time. And so if you're a CEO, you need to be really agile with how your business is navigating these things, so that you can not be blindsided by an employee in an all employee meeting, right? You want to be able to answer the question and be attuned. And some CEOs are really deeply aware of what is going on any given day. Others are really heads down operationally driving a business, and sometimes need their communications leaders to be like, hey, these three things just happened, and I know you saw the headlines, but here's 6 ways you may not have thought that they could come up in your interview, or your employees may hit you up in the next team meeting. That's your job. And so the comms teams, in my opinion, have to be even more front-footed in order to prepare and arm management. There was a day and time years ago where reactive communications was really all about crisis management and crisis communications. That is not true anymore. Reactive communications is now really, in my opinion, a 24/7 muscle that you have to be building your team and your department to be watching and monitoring and aware of what's going on. You need to do your tabletop exercises on the things that you know are coming, but you need to be paying attention to the stuff you don't see coming, because it's going to happen, and have the muscle and the operational skills to react to that and say, okay, what research do we need? What do we need to know about our own business? Do we have partners that are impacted by X, Y, or Z new regulation? And because in a world of social media, people, consumers, customers, they figure it out faster than you do. And then your executives are going to be the flat-footed ones that are like, oh, I don't know. And it's okay, in my opinion, to say, hey, this is brand new, I don't have an answer yet, but you only get so long to do that. And so you really have to treat reactive as an everyday muscle, in my opinion, to keep your executives front-footed so they can be agile in an environment where agility is frankly a must if you want to maintain leadership credibility.
Yes, so leaders and communications people, be agile and read the news.
Right.
Very important.
Well, yeah.
Very important. Which actually, this leads pretty good lead into question 3. Executives are under a lot of pressure to deliver results lately. So how can communications teams turn that into messages employees actually understand, without losing trust or creating confusion? There's a lot of layoffs going on. There are the stock market's up and down, for shareholders, so how can, communicators help with that?
My answer is going to sound a little bit predictable, but also it's a little bit, some people really disagree with me. And I just think it's really about transparency. I think everything I've seen in my career, every employee I've talked to would rather have more transparency, even if it creates a little uncertainty, than have this definitive, I can tell you these 3 things and only these 3 things, because there's uncertainty over here and I won't touch this. Context matters greatly. I think it matters. Years ago, I worked for a man at Microsoft who was inherently very good at giving context around, hey, we're going to go do this. Let me give you a little of the backstory on how we got here within the realm of what they're allowed to share. Nobody should be breaching confidentiality. I'm not promoting something like that. But for me, I've always found I'm better. I'm also adding more value if I have context on how did we get here? What are we trying to do? And I understand the answer to the question, like it, hate it, doesn't really matter. Sometimes you have to get on board. But the transparency, even when there's things that are still unknown, allows me to then treat that situation with intelligence and knowledge and intent, versus thinking, oh, it's done and these 3 things happen. And by the way, employees get mad if they don't understand why something's being done and they disagree with it. It's very easy for them to get very angry, and then you get dissatisfaction, you lose productivity. Nobody wants that. It's better, in my opinion, and some leaders are inherently good at this, others are not, to just be honest. Hey, we are navigating a very difficult economic climate. I have a shareholder responsibility. We are going to have to raise prices. Let me explain to you why. It's the first time we've done it in 10 years. This is a T-Mobile story. It was very public. It's the first time we've done it in 10 years. But the reality is costs around us have really gone up. And I still have to deliver for all of you as employees, for our shareholders. And we're going to deliver great value to our customers because we're still going to be less expensive than the next guy. You got to talk about it. And so I think if you're honest and you're transparent and then you're consistent, the other thing I will just say is it's not just does the CEO say the same thing. Does his entire management team understand why we're doing what we're doing and what the message is, and are we all, speaking to our people consistently? And when you do that, the power is amazing, and employees go, okay, I get it. Like it, hate it, I still get it. And I'm not hearing Joe say this and Bob say that because, Joe's backfighting, but that's bad management. And so you just have to be, I think, transparent and consistent.
Yeah. And when you share those, truthful explanations with employees, then if, say they're out at a family dinner or something, someone asks them a question, why is my phone going up? They can give them the truth and the real answer. And, anything, they always say, everything internal is now external.
So true. It's so true.
So that works, in everybody's favor. Question 4. What is one of the biggest risks when leadership tone or messaging shifts too quickly? And how can comms teams spot the risk before it escalates?
I think it's a little bit of you lose your transparency and your consistency. If it shifts really quickly and people don't know why, like I've seen management, CEO meets with the board, they got to change something. And if everybody's not briefed, you can think your CEO is wonderful and back them, but you can't elaborate when an employee's like, well, I don't get it. Like, why did we, 2 weeks ago, we said blah, this week we're saying something different. Can you explain it to me? You want to be able to explain it. It's very similar to your dinner example with employee. Employees are your biggest advocates and can be your biggest sort of assets or detractors if they're informed and motivated and understand the business. Management is also an employee. So if the gears have to shift, and they should, goes back to agility. Sometimes you just got to make a change. But if you don't have a clue why, then think about the lack of conviction when you're trying to defend a friend who's done something and you don't really understand why they did it, but you're trying to be a good friend. Like, you got to understand what's going on so you can be candid and be transparent, or get permission to say, like, I really don't know how we got here, but I have confidence that it was for good reason, or we wouldn't have changed our position. Because when you try and dance around it, in today's day and age, that dancing lands in social media, it gets amplified times 20. Stupid memes come out of it, and people look dumb. And what comes from just a mismatch of we didn't have time to educate everybody becomes this big negative. You guys are suddenly hypocrites. There's usually a reason. Most companies and management teams don't make sweeping shifts in a position just because they woke up one day. There's a reason. So you got to figure out how to talk about it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, I've heard sometimes if you don't have the answer, sometimes it's good to say, you know what, we don't have the answer for that right now. We're working on it and we will get back to you.
Yes.
It's better to have something than nothing. So, that's something.
Trust.
Yeah, that bridges trust for sure. Last question.
Yes, ma'am.
This is a fun one. Got to have one fun question. If you could only have one comfort food the rest of your life, what would it be? In honor of the big storms, at least that were going on this week in the East Coast.
I am, my entire family, my sisters and I, we are sourdough fanatics, and yet I have not tried to make any sourdough, which I should be doing. But so good sourdough, good Italian dry salami. I like comfort food. Bad day, hot day, cold day, doesn't matter. Take it to the beach or sit in front of the fire. I can eat it, and I can't not have it. And I don't need the carbs, but I don't care.
Good Italian sub goes a long way. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on 5 Questions with Janice. We appreciate it, and we'll see you all soon.
Yeah, thanks so much.